C# programming tutorial, setting up the environment. Welcome back to the second episode in this series of tutorials teaching you how to use C#. In this session, we're going to set up our environment, basically install an IDE that we can code in. And for this series of lessons, we'll be using Visual Studio. So previously with Python, we used Visual Studio Code, and you definitely can code in C# in Visual Studio Code, but we are going to be using Visual Studio. It's got a lot of extra functionality that is useful to us as beginner coders. So that's what we're going to be using. It's a little bit complex getting the right version of Visual Studio installed, so just follow along with this video. Also, what comes along with Visual Studio is .NET, which is useful. Go to download straight away. And you can see that Visual Studio comes in a variety of options. There's Community, Professional, Enterprise. Community is free, and it's the one that we'll be installing. The other two you actually need to pay for over time. And you can see also that this screen will change from time to time. At the time of recording, this is early 2023, and you can see that it's still called Visual Studio 2022. No doubt that'll change sometime through the year. In order to get the latest versions of everything, I'm going to go to Preview. So Preview is basically get sort of experimental, I guess, versions of Visual Studio. The reason I'm doing that is because we want .NET MAUI and Blazor included, which are two features that we'll use later on. And at the time of publishing, they weren't included in Visual Studio 22. So you had to get the preview version. That may change in the future, but for the time being, we're going to go and get the preview version. Now, when you download Visual Studio Preview, let's see what happens here. Okay, so you'd be going for Visual Studio Community, this one here. You download the preview. Now, interestingly, what it's doing is it's not actually downloading Visual Studio. It's actually downloading an installer that will let you install the required components of Visual Studio. So Visual Studio is a very big, rich tool, and you don't need all of it. So I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. If I go in here and have a look, so I've already installed my Visual Studio. So what you're going to see is something like an installer pop up. It'll run, and then it'll finally give you a page to let you install the things you want. I'll show you what that looks like since I've already installed it. So you'll get something that looks something like this. It may change from version to version. It's hard to tell, but basically it's going to be a screen that scrolls down here. You're going to have like workloads most likely, and you need to select web development, multi-platform UI development, and .NET desktop development if that's available. It may not be available for Mac users. And that's it, right? You can scroll down and have a look at the other stuff here. It's interesting, isn't it? They've got Python development, Node.js. They've got a lot of different things, C++, a lot of different languages you can actually use Visual Studio for. We're just using a small part of it. Now, the idea behind this thing is to save space on your computer. If you were to select all of these options, you would use a lot of space here. So I would recommend just choosing those three or just these two if they're the only ones available to you, and install while downloading. Just kick it off and let it run, install the modules that you need. And it will include .NET 7, which is good. So I'll let you do that, and I'll see you in the next video.